You ever look back on a relationship and wonder when it all started to rot? Not the obvious moment, not the fight, the betrayal, or the tears, but that quiet, almost invisible shift when love starts feeling more like surveillance. That was my reality, long before I ever caught her. We'd been together for 3 years. 3 long years that I once thought were building toward forever. We had plans, dreams, a shared calendar full of goals. I used to joke that we were like a well-oiled machine, smooth, stable, dependable. But that stability came with a cost I didn't see at first. Her name was Qley. When we met, she was everything I thought I wanted: fiery, funny, confident in a way that drew people in. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. And when she looked at me, man, I believed I was. It started small, like it always does. "Text me when you get to work," she'd say, her voice sweet but firm. Then it became, "Text me when you leave." Then, "Who's that coworker you always eat lunch with?" And before I knew it, I was living in a constant cycle of reporting my day like a soldier checking in with his commanding officer. At first, I told myself it was love, that she just cared too much. But love doesn't come with interrogation. Love doesn't make you account for every minute like you're being audited for affection. She said it was because she'd been cheated on in the past, that she had trust issues. So I swallowed it. Every question, every accusation, every moment she turned a simple conversation into an inquisition, I took it in silence. Because I thought that's what good men did. They understood. They reassured. But understanding doesn't fix obsession. And reassurance only feeds control. It got to the point where if I stopped to grab a coffee after work, she'd blow up my phone with questions. "Why didn't you tell me you were stopping? Who are you with? Why did it take you 10 extra minutes to get home?" Every text was a landmine, and every reply had to be carefully crafted, neutral, perfectly timed. I started to feel watched, like my life wasn't mine anymore. But I didn't want to lose her, because despite all that, she still had moments where she'd pull me close and whisper, "I just love you too much." That's my problem. And when you're in love, you want to believe that line. You need to believe it. I remember one evening, late summer. We were sitting on the couch, a movie playing in the background. She was scrolling through my phone under the guise of just checking a notification. Her thumb stopped. Then her expression changed. Not angry, not sad, just that tight-lipped, quiet fury that told me something was about to explode. "What's this?" she asked. I leaned over. It was a group chat from work, a meme sent by a coworker named Lacey. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing even remotely flirtatious. But that didn't matter. Qley threw my phone down on the couch and crossed her arms. "She's always messaging you. You think I don't notice? She sends everyone stuff," I said calmly. "It's a group chat." "Yeah, but she doesn't message everyone at midnight." "She sent a cat meme," I replied. "Because the server crashed." Her eyes narrowed. "You're defending her. You always defend her." That argument spiraled into 3 hours of shouting, crying, door slamming, and silence. And by the end of it, she was apologizing, clinging to me, telling me how she just gets scared because she can't lose me. That was her superpower, turning guilt into glue. Every time she crossed a line, she'd cry about her trauma, and I'd find myself comforting her for hurting me. After a while, it became routine. Every day I'd send her my schedule, what time I was leaving for work, what meetings I had, when I planned to get home. If I didn't, she'd accuse me of keeping secrets. It was exhausting. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I was running on fumes. But she had this way of flipping a switch. One day she'd be distant and paranoid. The next, she'd be planning our future together, talking about houses, kids, vacations. And for a while, I convinced myself that the good moments outweighed the bad, that every relationship had ups and downs. But that illusion started to crack the day she began acting distracted. It was subtle at first. More time on her phone, sudden bursts of laughter at messages she wouldn't share, vague explanations about just work stuff. She'd angle her screen away when I walked by, and when I'd ask who she was texting, she'd give me that annoyed sigh. The one that said, "How dare you question me after everything I've been through?" The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who demanded to know where I was every minute of the day suddenly became a vault when it came to her own behavior. That's when I felt the first real shift inside me. Something in my chest, that constant, desperate need to reassure her, started to die. And what replaced it was suspicion. Cold, rational, undeniable suspicion. She started asking for my schedule more aggressively than ever. "Can you tell me when you'll be home every day this week? I want to plan something," she said one night, her tone too casual to be genuine. I didn't think much of it, not then. But looking back, it was too precise, too rehearsed. When I told her my hours, she typed something on her phone almost immediately, like she was taking notes. That's when a little voice whispered in the back of my mind, "She's not planning something for you. She's planning around you." And that whisper wouldn't shut up. It followed me everywhere, through meetings, commutes, late-night showers where I'd stare at my reflection and wonder when my relationship had turned into an investigation. The breaking point came a week later. It was a Sunday morning, quiet, cloudy, one of those lazy days where the world feels half asleep. Qley was in the kitchen making coffee, humming a tune I didn't recognize. I leaned against the doorway and just watched her, wondering if I was imagining everything. If maybe I'd become the paranoid one now. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't move to pick it up immediately, but when I glanced at the screen, I saw a name flash across it. Troy. The name didn't ring a bell, but the look on her face when she realized I'd seen it told me everything I needed to know. She snatched the phone so fast it nearly fell, mumbling something about a coworker. I asked, "Who's Troy?" She froze, smiled too quickly, and said, "Just someone from work. Shipping department. He needed a signature on a document." The lie was smooth, rehearsed, even, but her hands were shaking. That was the first time I saw fear in her eyes, not the fear of losing me, but the fear of being caught. And that's when something in me clicked. All those trust issues, all those just checking in messages, the constant need to know my every move. It wasn't about love. It was projection. She'd been accusing me of the very thing she was doing. And once that thought took hold, it was impossible to shake. That night, I lay awake beside her, pretending to sleep while she scrolled on her phone in the dark. Her screen lit up her face, that faint smile dancing on her lips as she typed. Every few seconds, she'd glance over at me to make sure I was still asleep. I kept my breathing steady, and in that silence, the truth screamed louder than any words could. She was cheating on me. I didn't have proof yet, but my gut had already rendered its verdict. And I promised myself, quietly, calmly, without rage, that if I found out for sure, I wouldn't just walk away. I'd make sure she never forgot what she'd done. It's strange how silence can scream louder than words. After that night, I started hearing things differently. Her laughter over text, sharper. Her excuses, rehearsed. Even the way she said, "I love you," felt automated, like a reflex instead of a feeling. But here's the part that hurts the most. I still loved her. I didn't want her to be cheating. I wanted there to be some simple, stupid explanation that made all of it make sense. Because if I was right, then 3 years of my life meant nothing. And that's the hardest part about suspicion. It eats at both your logic and your hope. For a few days, I tried to go about things normally. We ate dinner together, watched TV, went to bed at the same time. But I started noticing patterns. Her schedule began to change, small tweaks at first. "Work's been hectic," she'd say. "They're asking me to stay late." Except her pay stubs didn't show any overtime. And she'd come home smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. That's when my stomach began to twist into knots. I remember one night, I was sitting on the balcony after she'd gone to bed. It was quiet. No traffic, no neighbors outside, just the hum of the night. And I pulled out my phone and messaged her coworker, Mark, who I'd become friendly with over the years. He was a solid guy, married, easygoing, and the kind of person who never got involved in drama. I typed, "Hey man, weird question. Has Qley been working late lately?" He replied almost instantly, "Nah, not that I've seen. She clocks out at 5 most days." What? My heart sank. "Just curious," I wrote back. She said she's been staying late. There was a pause. Then another message popped up. "Weird. She leaves early sometimes, actually. Usually on Wednesdays." Wednesdays. That word stuck to my brain like glue. The next day, I started connecting dots I hadn't seen before. Every Wednesday, she'd get weirdly particular about her plans. If I suggested lunch together, she'd say she had too much work. If I said I'd pick her up, she'd claim she had errands. And every time, her tone would shift, defensive, jumpy, like she was protecting something. I went back through our texts and noticed that Wednesdays were the only days she'd go hours without replying. And right around the time those trust issues of hers started to spike. was the same time she began taking those mysterious Wednesdays off. Coincidence? Maybe. But I've learned that love makes you overlook coincidences until they slap you across the face. I needed facts, not guesses. Because without proof, she'd twist everything. She was good at that, turning logic into guilt. If I confronted her without evidence, she'd cry, talk about her trauma, tell me I was just like everyone else who didn't trust her. And somehow, I'd end up apologizing for catching her lie. So I played it smart. I didn't change a thing. I acted normal, laughed when she laughed, kissed her goodbye every morning, even brought home takeout like always. But underneath that calm surface, I was building something. A plan. In my line of work, if I put in more than 40 hours, I could take time off whenever I wanted, as long as the work was made up later. So I started stacking hours. Working early, staying late. Because I knew, when the time came, I'd need a free day to see what she was really doing on those Wednesdays. But before I made my move, I wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy. So I reached out to Mark again. Hey man, quick question. Kayla's been doing a lot of overtime lately, right? He laughed. Overtime? Dude, she's barely doing her regular shifts. That was all I needed. The pieces were aligning too perfectly to be chance. A few nights later, we went to dinner with some friends, one of whom happened to be Mark. I didn't plan it that way, but fate has a cruel sense of humor. Halfway through the meal, Kayla excused herself to take a phone call. Mark leaned over and said quietly, "So, is everything okay with you two?" She's been acting kinda, I don't know, distant at work. I asked what he meant. He hesitated, then said, "She spends a lot of time in the shipping area lately. You know, where her cousin works." Troy, right? My chest tightened. I kept my voice even. Yeah, Troy. Mark nodded. They seemed close. Always whispering, joking around. Didn't think much of it, but I figured you'd know. I smiled. Forced. Tight. Yeah, I said. I know. But I didn't. Not yet. When we got home that night, she was glowing. That kind of brightness people get when they've been seen by someone who isn't supposed to see them. She hummed in the shower, laughed at nothing, floated around the apartment like she was lighter than air. And I just watched. Quiet. Detached. Because by then, I'd stopped being her partner and started being her observer. That weekend, I decided to test something. I told her I'd be working a double shift on Wednesday. She smiled a little too quickly. Oh good, she said. I'll probably go shopping or something. Shopping? I asked. Middle of the week? She shrugged. Gotta use my half day somehow. That confirmed it. She wasn't even pretending to work Wednesdays anymore. The next few days, I planned everything down to the smallest detail. I went into our shared office space, a corner of the apartment with a small desk, a laptop, and a view of the living room, bedroom door, and kitchen. That old laptop had a webcam. Nothing fancy, but functional. I rigged it with remote access software, set motion alerts, and tested it 3 times to make sure it would notify me the second there was movement. To her, it was just a forgotten piece of tech gathering dust. To me, it was about to become my silent witness. By Tuesday night, my plan was set. I packed my work bag, laid out my clothes, and told her I'd be leaving early for a big meeting the next day. She kissed me goodnight, light, sweet, almost innocent. If I didn't know better, I'd have sworn she loved me. But I did know better. And as I watched her sleep, I couldn't shake the image of her phone lighting up in the dark, that secret smile, that whisper of a name, Troy. The morning of the sting, I woke up before sunrise. I dressed for work, grabbed my keys, and kissed her forehead like always. She mumbled, half asleep, "Love you." I didn't answer. I just smiled, because I already knew she'd be saying those same words to someone else in a few hours. I drove out like normal, but instead of heading to the office, I circled back and parked behind a shopping center across from our apartment complex. From where I sat, I had a clear view of both exits. She couldn't leave without me seeing her. The clock ticked slowly. 8 o'clock, 8:15, 8:30. No movement. But then, around 9 o'clock, I saw it, a flash of red. A very specific red Mustang with a decal on the back window. Her cousin's car. My stomach dropped. She'd always spoken about Troy like he was harmless. Like a brother, she said. But that wasn't a brotherly car pulling into our lot at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning when she was supposed to be at work. I clenched the steering wheel, forcing myself to stay calm. Because if I rushed in now, I'd get nothing but tears, excuses, and manipulation. I needed undeniable proof, the kind she couldn't talk her way out of. So I waited. A few minutes later, I got the notification on my phone. Motion detected on laptop cam. My heart pounded. I opened the live feed, and what I saw made my entire body go cold. The second that motion alert hit my phone, my whole body locked up. It was like time froze. The little red notification glowed on my screen, mocking me. Confirmation that my instincts had been right all along. I took a deep breath, opened the remote feed, and there it was. Our living room. Sunlight creeping through the blinds. The faint hum of the fridge in the background. And Qley, pacing. She wasn't in her work clothes. No polished hair, no ID badge, no uniform. Just a loose tank top, shorts, and that nervous energy of someone waiting for something or someone. A minute later, the door opened, and that someone stepped in. Troy. That stupid red Mustang wasn't lying. He walked in like he owned the place, like this wasn't his cousin's fiancé's apartment, like this wasn't my home. He grinned, said something I couldn't hear, and she laughed, that same high-pitched, flirty laugh I hadn't heard in months. Then she reached out, unbuttoned his shirt, and pulled him close. My screen froze for a split second as the connection adjusted, and when it came back, they were kissing. Deep, desperate, familiar. My chest went tight, not with shock, not even anger. It was grief. That heavy, hollow kind of grief that hits when you realize the person you loved never really existed. I just sat there, motionless, watching as everything I'd believed in burned right in front of me. For a few minutes, I told myself I needed to look away, that watching this was only going to tear me apart. But I couldn't, because the betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was theatrical. They didn't even hesitate, didn't sneak off to the bedroom, didn't whisper, didn't pause. They went straight to the couch. Our couch, the one we bought together, the one we'd spent nights on, watching movies, eating takeout, planning our future. And now they were defiling it. I felt this strange calm settle over me, that dangerous calm that comes right before a storm, the kind that isn't fueled by rage, but by precision. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to drive over there and make a scene. No, if I was going to lose everything, I'd make sure they lost more. So I did something cruel, calculated. But after what I was seeing, it felt justified. I created a private URL, a live stream link to that webcam feed. Then, without hesitation, I sent it to 2 group chats, one with all of our close friends, and one with her entire family, her mother, her brothers, her cousins, even Troy's mother, who was, by blood, Qley's aunt by marriage. I hit send, and just like that, the quiet betrayal became a public execution. Within minutes, my phone started blowing up. Calls, texts, notifications, people asking, "Is this real? Dude, what the hell is going on? Tell me this isn't live." It was. Every second of it. Qley's phone started ringing too. I could hear it faintly through the laptop mic. She ignored it, too busy being unfaithful to notice the tidal wave of humiliation coming her way. It wasn't until the 4th or 5th call that she finally picked up, sweaty, flushed, breathless. She put it on speaker, and I swear to you, what happened next could have been ripped straight out of a soap opera. A woman's voice burst through the speaker, sharp, furious, trembling. "Stop fing my son, asterisk." Troy froze. Qley's eyes went wide. The room fell silent except for the faint echo of that one sentence. She stammered, What are you talking about?" But it was too late. His mother, his own mother, had just watched them together on a live feed I'd sent. The same woman who'd helped Qley get that job, who'd invited us both over for family dinners, who'd once called me the best thing that ever happened to her niece. Her voice cracked through the speakers again. "Everyone saw it, Qley. Everyone. There's a live video of you two on the couch." I saw Qley's whole body deflate. Her hands trembled. She looked at the phone, then at Troy, then at herself, naked under the blanket of shame that no pillow could cover. She grabbed the nearest cushion and tried to hide behind it, her face crumpling into tears. Troy panicked, fumbling with his pants, tripping over the coffee table so hard he left a dent in the wood. And I was parked right outside, watching it unfold in real time, laughing quietly through the lump in my throat. Because justice, real justice, doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers through a webcam. As Troy bolted out of the apartment, I decided to give him one final surprise. I stepped out of my car and walked toward the front gate of the complex. He came out of the building, face red, eyes wide, half-dressed, muttering apologies to the air. When he saw me standing there, his whole body froze. "Man, I'm so sorry," he stammered, voice breaking. It just happened." "Save it," I said quietly. "You were trespassing. On my property." He tried to say something else, but I didn't let him finish. I won't go into every detail, because frankly, it wasn't my proudest moment. Let's just say emotions boiled over, and it ended with me in a cast for 6 weeks, and him avoiding family gatherings for the better part of a year. When I finally walked back up to that apartment, the air was thick, like the world itself was holding its breath. The front door was still open. Kayla was sitting on the floor, fully dressed now, eyes red and swollen. Tears streaked down her face as she tried to speak. "Please," she whispered. It wasn't what it looked like. I cut her off with a laugh. "Really?" "Because it looked exactly like what it looked like." She sobbed harder, trying to reach for me, but I stepped back. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw her without the rose-colored lens of love. And she was pathetic. Not because she cried, not because she got caught, but because she'd traded something real for something so cheap. I tilted my head and asked, almost casually, "Is that snot on your face, or cum?" She gasped, covering her mouth, sobbing harder. Then I said, cold as ice, "Don't answer. It doesn't matter." I told her she had 1 hour to get her things and leave. Not 2, not 3, 1. Because this wasn't her home anymore. Legally, she had no claim to anything. The apartment was in my name. Every stick of furniture, every dish, every towel mine. All she had were her clothes, her makeup, and a few kitchen utensils she'd insisted on buying. She tried calling her mom, no answer. Her brothers, no answer. Her aunt, who was also Troy's mom, answered just long enough to tell her she wasn't welcome there either. I stood by the door and watched her crumble. The woman who once controlled every detail of my life now couldn't control a single thing. When her hour was up, I opened the door. "Time's up," I said quietly. She begged, said she had nowhere to go, that she made a mistake, that she still loved me. But I was done listening to lies. So I stepped aside and let her walk out, clutching a garbage bag full of clothes and shame. By the next morning, the story had spread like wildfire. In small towns, gossip travels faster than truth. And this time, they were one and the same. Everyone knew. Her family, her friends, her coworkers, even her boss at the fabrication plant. She quit within a week, moved 2 towns over to live with a friend who didn't know the full story. But small-town internet has a long memory. The live feed link had already been saved, shared, and screenshotted. To say she was untouchable would be an understatement. She was radioactive. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel victorious. What I felt was peace. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't being watched, questioned, or controlled. My life was mine again. And though part of me still mourned the girl I thought I loved, the other part, the part that watched her lies burn down in real time, knew that I'd done the only thing that could truly set me free. I didn't just catch her cheating. I exposed her hypocrisy, her manipulation, her control. She used paranoia as her weapon. So I turned it against her, and she never saw it coming. You ever notice how quiet it gets after chaos? Like, right after a storm when the wind dies down, and everything's just still? That's what the apartment felt like after she left. No sound, no scent of her perfume, no echo of her voice asking if I wanted coffee. Just silence. I thought that silence would comfort me. But that first night, it felt like punishment. Every corner of the place whispered memories I didn't want to remember. The dent in the coffee table where Troy tripped. The lipstick stain on the wine glass she left behind. The faint smell of her shampoo on my pillow. I tried to sleep, but the replay button in my head was stuck on that scene. The living room, the laughter, the betrayal, and the truth hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't angry anymore. I was empty. The next few days blurred together. I kept my head down, went to work, came home, repeated. But small towns have big mouths, and everywhere I went, I could feel the whispers. People pretending not to stare. Old friends sending texts that started with, "Bro, you good?" Even my coworkers, who used to talk sports and lunch breaks, suddenly wanted to talk about her. "Man, I can't believe she did that. Bro, that video was wild. You're better off without her, dude." They meant well, but every word was another reminder that I'd been a headline, a walking rumor, a tragedy people gossiped about over beers. 3 weeks passed before I saw her again. Not in person, on social media. Someone sent me a screenshot of her new post. She'd dyed her hair, moved into a small apartment in the next city over. The caption said, "Starting fresh. Some mistakes are lessons in disguise." Comments poured in, sympathy, fake positivity, emojis. People saying things like, "You got this," or "You deserve happiness too." I almost laughed. Because the internet doesn't care what you did, it just wants to pretend it understands. But I didn't comment, didn't like, didn't block her. I just watched for a moment, then turned off my phone. Because for once, I didn't need to respond. Silence had become my revenge. A few months later, I ran into her mother at the grocery store. She hesitated before walking over, holding a basket full of produce. "Hey," she said softly. Her eyes looked tired, older somehow. I nodded. "Hey." She sighed. I wanted to apologize. For everything. She's not the same anymore. "I know," I said quietly. "Neither am I." We stood there for a moment, strangers connected by the ghost of what used to be family. Before she left, she placed a hand on my arm. "She lost everything," she whispered. "You did the right thing." I didn't respond. Because deep down, I wasn't sure if there was a right thing anymore. There was just what happened, and what I became because of it. 6 months later, the divorce papers came through. It was quick. She didn't contest a thing. Probably because she had nothing left to fight for. I signed them at my kitchen table. The same one where we used to plan vacations and laugh over dinner. When I was done, I didn't feel the relief I thought I would. I felt closure. And that's different. Closure doesn't always come with fireworks or tears. Sometimes, it's just you, sitting in a quiet room, signing your name, and realizing the storm finally passed. Troy disappeared for a while after the incident. Word was, he moved to another state to start over. Last I heard, he was working night shifts at a gas station and had gained 50 pounds. Kayla tried dating again, but every time she met someone, it fell apart. Because sooner or later, her past always found her. You can change your hair, your job, your address, but you can't outrun the internet. And you definitely can't outrun karma. A year after the divorce, I took a trip. Not to escape, but to reset. Drove out to the coast, rented a cabin by the ocean, and just listened. The sound of waves crashing. The smell of salt in the air. The kind of peace that doesn't ask for permission. It just arrives when you've earned it. One night, I built a small fire outside. Watched the flames dance in the wind. And I took out my old phone. The one that held all those messages, screenshots, videos, and memories of that awful day. Then I tossed it into the fire. The plastic hissed, the screen cracked, and for the first time in a long time, I felt light. Because forgiveness doesn't always mean letting someone back in your life. Sometimes, it just means letting go of the version of yourself that they broke. It's been 3 years now. I rebuilt myself piece by piece. New job, new city, new friends. And every once in a while, someone asks if I regret it. The exposure, the humiliation, the public revenge. And my answer's always the same. No, because sometimes you have to burn down a forest to make room for sunlight. She tried to destroy me in silence. I ended her lies in daylight. That's not cruelty. That's balance. If you've ever been betrayed, deeply, painfully, by someone you would have done anything for, I want you to remember something. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to beg to be understood. Sometimes, all it takes is standing still and letting the truth do what it does best. Set you free. If you felt that quiet satisfaction of justice finally catching up, then you belong here. Because on Revenge Stories TV, we don't just tell stories. We live through them. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every perfectly delivered dose of karma. So if you believe that what goes around always comes around, hit that subscribe button, tap like, and turn on notifications. Because trust me, you don't want to miss the next story.